A little line dancing or something going on out there this morning. Music. Okay, we are recording and live streaming when you are ready to call us to order, Mr. Chairman.
It says it's 11 o'clock, according to the clock on the wall. We'll call order the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Finance and Administration Committee meeting. First thing is call an order, which we did. We need to modify the agenda. Would you like to make the motion? You want me to?
Might be up where, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add an item, number 4 to the agenda for a preliminary fiscal year 2025 budget proposal discussion.
Okay. It's been moved and I'll second that. It's moved to second to amend the agenda to include one item, which was budget proposal 25 fiscal year 25 budget proposal first draft. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Now we'll do a call to the public. Anybody online?
There's not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll move on then. We have another opportunity later in the agenda. The first item of business. Consider approving the prime contract change order number 20 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $7,668 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And we have senior project manager, is that the correct title?
That is.
Heidi with us on phone. So Heidi, would you like to give us background on this PPO?
Sure, good morning.
Morning.
We PCCO number 20 for PCO number 99 and 126. That's a total of $7,668. All these items are coming from buyout still, and our buyout amount is $153,104 remaining. We have not touched our contingency at this time, and for a total of contingency and buyout is $934,878. We are currently at about 70% complete with construction, and we have about 42% remaining in our contingency based on construction. The first item for number on PCCO 20 is PCCO 99. That is for RFI 321. We had some fire stopping that wasn't shown on the drawings that we needed to do at the I-beam and at the roof deck. Also in some area A as well to separate the fire corridor. We had an estimate to do that work of about $68,000. We proposed doing it as T&M, and the T&M cost came in at $43,546. And that will be taken from buyout. Our next item on the list is 126. That was for area B. So we had walls that were supposed to go to the deck in all the booking rooms. So each cell, when someone comes in after they're booked, would go in each of their own rooms. Each masonry wall was supposed to go to the deck. It was proposed not to take those to the deck, which was about 52 inches high from the top of the wall where they're currently at now to the deck. Doing that or with that credit then was $35,878. And that was from Strauss Masonry. And that will be returned to buyout.
Nice.
So Department of Corrections is good with not taking the blocks to the deck?
They are. Yep. The reason why is because we have a security ceiling in those rooms. So in order for a person or an inmate to access above the ceiling, it would be very challenging to try to get through that security ceiling. We do have access panels in there where needed. And we also have security lighting and any GRDs that need to be put in there so they cannot access to try to get out and above those walls.
Chairman, do you recall when we were out last, we were taking a tour with Jeff? And we were talking about the security panel that he said it took him close to 2 hours to get through. I think that's more than adequate in order to save the almost $36,000. I think that's good.
Do you have any further questions on this PCO?
No, but thank you for working this through the T and M for the top of the wall, the beams in area A fire stop. Appreciate you taking it through the T and M so that we can save more money. So thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Heidi. Enjoy
You're
the
welcome.
day off now.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
I will move the consideration of approving prime contract change order number 20 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $7,668 to the work session next Tuesday.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. It moves forward.
Okay.
Next item. Consider approving the State Tax Commission Form L 4029-2024 tax rate request form setting the 2024 Isabella County separate tax limitation operating budget at 6.61 mils and authorize the board chair and county clerk to sign the same. Do we have Pete Preston with us? Oh, there he is.
Hey, morning, Pete.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, so this is the time of the year where we have all the factors in concerning rollback, and Isabella County again did not experience a rollback. So we're moving forward with the 6.61 and strongly recommend that you levy that this summer.
Mhm.
Well, we're hoping to levy it too.
Mhm.
You have any questions on the form? Pretty standard form.
Pretty straightforward.
And you see your other specials that are on that form, those rates get set this fall for your winter bill, right?
Okay.
It's kind of a two-step process for this. This is just the summer bill, and the only thing we have on that is our county operating.
Correct.
And then this will be modified for a final form later in the year, once we know the outcome of the elections. The village election.
Yeah, there will be some renewals on there for the fall, and so whatever the result of that is, we'll present that sometime before September 30th.
Would you like to make this motion?
Sure. I move to take consideration of approving the state tax commission form L 4029 2024 tax rate request form setting the 2024 Isabella County separate tax limitation operating rate at 6.61 mils to our regular board meeting next Tuesday night.
Our work session?
Work session, I mean, yes.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward to our work session.
Beautiful.
Item number 3, consider accepting and placing on file the 2024 State Tax Commission Form L 4046 Taxable Valuation Report as presented. Mr. Preston.
Yeah, yes, the 4046 is just a culmination of the taxable values and ultimately is signed by the equalization director. I'm having trouble finding Judy's staff report that she presented. Let's see, there it is. Yeah, this is just the final culmination. There's really no action necessary on this. This is something that will be presented by the equalization director to the state tax commission.
Okay, I think we'll still put it on the work session agenda as just an information item, even though we don't need to take any action on it.
And it really just supports the values that you presented in April, Pete?
Yes, correct. It's just double check upon double check upon double check.
Perfect.
Good.
Very good.
So I will move that we take this as a information item to the work session. Well, it says consider accepting and placing on file. We'll take that consideration to the work session for the State Commission Tax Form L 4046 Taxable Valuation Report.
Support.
Moved, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. Thank you, Pete.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks,
Have a
Pete.
great
Have a
day.
great day.
And thank you, Nicole. Take care.
You're welcome. Thanks, Pete.
Something extra?
No, he always makes me nervous.
Oh.
Y'all made me nervous all morning. So they
Who
started
did?
at 8:15 and 8:13. Me and Julie were alone in the room this morning going, she
Hmm.
says, have the commissioners ever forgot to come in after a holiday? And I said, why no, but thank you for putting that thought in my mind. And
It's been there all day.
yeah, and all
Everything.
morning, we've just kind of been running it. No, I just got a little nervous because I didn't see him in the room, so I shot him a text, was all.
I'm used to it because I know I make her nervous, so
Oh, I know, I do too.
you make me nervous.
Well, with that, we'll move on to item number 4, which is 2025 budget proposal, the first draft.
There we go.
Excellent. And so here's drafts for you guys and go ahead and that out too. We do have a couple extras. Thank you, Miss Melissa. So I'm gonna go ahead and
Because they both got one.
pass those out as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Morning. They weren't meant to be all for you. Thank you. Thank you. I got mine, so. Big one out. So thank you for adding this to the agenda. As the budget calendar says, we would bring first draft budget fiscal 25 to you today. Now remember, the caveat with draft 1, this is department requested, right? So this is what they got to put in there. However, we did have a few budget meetings first, which is a little unusual, right? And we did that with the zero base. We did that with generally the 2 of you and also Chairman Hope was present. And a lot of times this department requested budget comes back in the red millions of dollars. Literally last year, I think it was $5 million or
Mhm.
more even.
Mhm. That's what set
And
me
then
off.
we whittle that down and we say, okay, Commissioner Embree, don't worry, it always looks like this.
Mhm.
Literally this year, I think we are closer than I've ever seen it as far as right out of the gate with the department requested budget. As you can see, our net of revenues and expenditures, we're utilizing at this point, almost $600,000 of fund balance. Don't get upset by that because I want to talk about what's built in, what's not built in, what we
Yeah.
still need to talk about, right? Because this zero-based budget is supposed to be balanced. We're supposed to go forward in fiscal 25, not taking away from fund balance or adding to, right? That zero base was gonna be netted out. So a big thing of what's in here, we followed some directives from those zero-based budget meetings and from meetings at the board level that you've had.
Mhm.
You've voted to build in road patrol deputies to be reinstated for
Mm.
Q1
There it is.
of this calendar year, right?
Mhm.
So that's October, November, December, over $500,000. That was not built into the zero base. We're hoping for additional revenues with a future millage request to be able to cover that. But think about that. In this budget, you've got that $500,000 of deputies in here. And we never said we would use the ongoing revenues that Pete just talked about, right? He came in April. Those revenues weren't in the zero base. That additional taxable value, that's gonna
Mhm.
bring us a little over $500,000. In our mind at the time, I think we thought, oh, there's an additional $500 of tax revenue. We'll use that to offset the Q1 deputies. But that doesn't logic out because we're not perpetuating that in our mind, right? We're going to a millage vote for that deputy funding. So that good news that Pete brought us for the taxable value really gets built into this zero-based budget as an ongoing, because that will be there every year, not just a
Not just
one-time.
for 3 months.
The deputies funding for the first quarter might be a one-time thing if we're successful with a millage request. that funding will be separate and can fund them going on into the future. It won't be part of the general
General
fund.
fund.
It'll be a fund on its own. Okay.
Mhm.
So that cools the room a little bit right there, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the big one. I also want you to know for those meetings that we've been having, another thing that's included in here is the full contract for MSU Extension. Although you heard this morning from Eric Karbowski at Human Resources Committee, they've cut out the Master Gardener program. Not the program, but the funding from us for that. They'll still cover Isabella, but they brought that down $3,000 additional dollars. So this does include funding for MSUE at almost $172,000. It does include MCOG dues, right? East Michigan Council of Governments. We talked about dues going away, but we recognize the value of staying with our regional planning agency and what that brings back to us. That's $7,000, and those dues are found in our community development department, if you're looking for them. It also includes, as again, we've talked in our meetings, the MMDC appropriation. Per contract, the amount we are appropriating to Middle Michigan Development Corp in fiscal 25 is almost $44,000. It does include $75,000 for capital improvements. I know we talked about best practice before when we were working on forecasting. We were talking $250,000 a year for capital improvements.
Mhm.
We took that down to zero through our meetings. Just it can't be zero. We landed at 75,000. So that's already in here. There's $40,000 in here for some capital improvements at the courthouse, on the courthouse roof. If Director Shoemaker can put another, like a seal it this year, it'll help us get more years out of the roof, and it'll keep us from putting $250,000 into it like we just did on the county building. So it's actually money well spent, and the only capital improvement project that we specifically received in the budget process this year.
For 2025.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
A whopping contingency. $500,823 is in your contingency currently.
That's
What
great.
It is great. What you directed us to do was to beef up that contingency, and we'll get to those other things that aren't in here, right? But understand
Okay.
there's 500, just over 500,000 in contingency built into this. There's a $315,000 appropriation to the MRF. That's not changed. That's pretty much how it's been through zero base. I did push Jake to look at his processing fees to say, Director Borton, can we offset some of that appropriation by increasing some of your revenues? He did a very thorough analysis of that, I believe, and it is not the right time. He looked at fees surrounding us with the materials management planning happening, and it's not the right time, and I trust Director Borton to know that.
Okay.
So the appropriation stands at 315,000. There's also an appropriation in here for GIS fund. That's something that the general fund normally does cover. The appropriation is 10,416. I put that on here just because it's not a mandate. It's something that we do, right? And so you just need to understand that relationship. We also did build in the county's portion of the correctional facility and sheriff's office that won't be done in our current fiscal, right? We'll still have some in fiscal 25, October, November, December, January. And our portion above and beyond the USDA, we pay about 12% every time one of those invoices comes through for Clark. 571,000 is built in.
That portion, which would include the furnishing of the building and
Correct,
some moving costs and some of those things.
correct. Yes,
That'll finish it.
that our portion of the 48 million that's not covered by the 41.5.
And that'll finish us off.
So,
Besides the regular
Yeah.
yearly payments.
yes.
Okay.
Also included in here is $750,000 for a future bond payment for the county building rebuild, right? And financial advisor tells us roughly that, and this hasn't been decided yet, but that's about $11 million over 30 years at 4.25%. So that's the kind of mentality that,
11 over 30.
yeah, probably nothing over 30. I think to go over 30, I think you do USDA
Yeah.
to get to 40. And that USDA rural development, you can't use those monies in a population over 20,000. So since that county building is in Mount Pleasant, we can't get a USDA rural development loan for that project.
30 years.
Which we're still deciding on how to proceed with the building, looking at different options, but there may be some savings there depending on what we do.
We have
Yes.
options, still have options on the table.
Yes, so all of those things are in there, and other things that we talked about too. Remember, we had built in the MERS increase for the defined benefit pension payment.
Yes.
We built in, that was 150,000, that's in there. We built in 10% increase for healthcare. That amount is in there. I don't think of anything else. Oh, the step increases, those are built in there. So a lot of things already in the mix.
Right.
Now let's talk about some of the things that aren't in there.
Real quick though.
Yeah,
before you go,
absolutely.
Something I thought of that
Mhm.
probably is important. One of the things that was built back in was both the payroll and the AP we talked about. And the reason why I don't think it's up here in the discussion items to consider, maybe payroll, whether we go, I know that the board has, tasked us with looking locally too, so we have those set up for both payroll and AP and accounting services to see what that might look like if someone local did it, as opposed to having a body doing that 5 days a week, in office. So those two positions, because remember, those were going to be absorbed by the clerk's office, and no staff were gonna be, eliminated from the clerk's office, so we moved some things around. Clerk has come forward with how to save and for some of those positions, but those two at about $60,000 each, so 120,000 were built back in to this, are included in this budget.
So it is included.
Also, that we don't have to discuss, find that money.
No,
It's
we
already
put that
back in.
because, I mean, you have to get payroll done. You have to cut,
Yeah, we do.
you have to cut AP. We are just at the deciding, we're now deciding, is that going to be done a person 5 days a week in the office? Or can that be contracted out for a lesser amount? So we're in that boat. More to come on that.
Good point.
Are you comfortable with 120,000 as being sufficient regardless? Because it may not go to the treasurer's office. It may just stay right where it is
Well,
now.
Clerk's office.
Clerk's office, yeah.
Yes, I think we're comfortable. I think we've built all of the positions back in. And thank you for bringing that up, Melissa, because that obviously it was a lot of discussion to this point. And the clerk actually just came to criminal justice this morning to bring one of her recommendations forward for saving. So we through this process, and as the clerk has experienced a lot of turnover in her office, we realize this is not the best chance for success to throw new duties at that office. And so Melissa and I, through a lot of trying to figure out what is best for the county, really feel if we're maintaining that administrator controller structure, that really what the county needs more than a deputy administrator controller is a finance director with a finance department. I think it's kind of how it was before I was hired on as deputy, or when my predecessor was still here. Prior to that, you had a finance department. In the budget, there would be a finance director, an accountant, an AP clerk, and a payroll clerk. So that would be the accountant that we had originally, in the zero base, we had thought maybe would go to the treasurer's office. So no money it needs to add, we're just changing that back from the treasurer's office back to admin. So the money was still there, we just had to switch that around, including, some money for contracted services, as Melissa pointed out. Well, we still are looking at some local accounting firms. Can you do payroll? Can you do accounting? Can you do AP? And what does that look like? And And is it just printing checks? Because if you get the fun part, then we'll keep that. Thank you very much, you know? So, but we're looking at what does that involve? What does that cost? So then what does that leave admin looking like aside from finance? And of course, finance would answer to administrator controller. Then in admin, you would have the administrator controller, the executive assistant and the HR specialist. You'd have human resources still under admin. That's kind of the structure we're recommending in here to go forward with.
Don't have many
Good point.
options, really.
A couple options and I think we
Yeah, it's
looked
about-
into it and we're looking to a couple more, but I think that we believe strongly in that. So let's talk about some things that aren't in the mix and what you might want to consider some of that contingency for. Emergency management coordinator position is not built in there. Assistant prosecuting attorney position is not built in. Through talks with prosecuting attorney Barbary, we had always talked with him about one of his senior assistant prosecuting attorney positions was ARPA funded. And even though he'd been promised that the funding would be found when that funding went away, I've been talking with him about the position goes away when the funding goes away. That's what our budget resolution says. And as unfortunate as that is, that's any grant goes away, any funding stream goes away, the position can go away.
Mhm.
So if that, and that has happened in this draft, the ARPA funder, the senior APA position that was funded by ARPA is not included in here. What my understanding in our follow-up budget meeting with prosecuting attorney Barbary was that this puts him then at one less attorney than the public defender's office. And I just think that's important to point out because we've been standing on the correct rule that if funding goes away, the position goes away. But I want you to understand, because I don't know that it ever clicked with me before, that that is one less attorney position than public defender has. So you have to think, you have to think about that. I don't know that I can recommend the board would fund defense more than prosecutor or vice versa. And I realize we're not funding the whole public defender's office. We still have our share, which is in here, and that is unchanged. But I just want to point that out to you in your consideration. Pat's contract is not in here with any funding, any level of funding. We do have the animal shelter still in here, obviously we're taking care of that. We're paying the light bill, we're paying the heat bill, we're maintaining, we're repairing. It doesn't have the HATS contract, so some amount of money should probably be considered for that. I know there's other commissioners who want to see some level of funding there, but there is none in the current. Drain's intern was something that was discussed at budget time. The Drain Commission office has utilized an intern traditionally for many, many years, and that was one of the things that got cut. It's been one of the things that they have asked for back, including an intern at the prosecuting attorney's office as well. Those can be a great, efficient, cost-effective way of getting duties done, so that is something to consider. And then, thank you, Melissa, for delineating these out, because I hadn't really thought about board dues. We held that straight line of no dues, so this means for you, there's no MAC dues, there's no MTA dues, there's no National Association of Counties dues, there's no CVB or chamber.
Right.
And those are important partners. So you can see the dollar amounts here. We're talking about $11,000, just over 11,000, 11,500 total for all of those. So please consider those things as well. I know return on investment, MAC, is pretty hard to beat.
Mhm.
MTA sends some really great information and some wonderful trainings. National Association of Counties, I know during COVID, they really stepped up and we had some resources come our way, but I can say I reached out to them a couple of weeks ago and have yet to hear back. So I'm not sure the value of the National Association of Counties. I'm not sure what we get there, other than maybe website access.
I know the National Association of Counties, that was one that was brought up and added during the 10 years I've been on the board, and I'm not sure what value we get out of it. I know we do get value out of the MAC, but
And that's a hefty.
it's not a big dollar amount, but. So as I look at these numbers, if we were to include this, our deficit, I mean, that we still have to cut out of the budget almost comes up to $1 million. However,
Not if you take it out of contingency.
if you take it out of contingency, but I don't want to spend that contingency down. We need to have some contingency. We don't know with all the changes we're making, what all those
Yeah.
impacts are gonna be as we
What's the
move forward.
shakeout gonna be by the time we start going through this?
We've brought very few bad ideas to you for funding, right? They're all good ideas. They all deserve funding, right? But there's just not enough to do it all. So there's the crux, but this is draft one. We're closer than we've ever been at
Yeah.
draft one. And keep in mind that first quarter deputies are funded in here.
Yep.
And so if you were gonna use, it's hard for me to even breathe that we might use fund balance to balance the fiscal 25 budget, because that wasn't the purpose.
Not the point.
But if you are going to put the quarter one deputies in there, then perhaps you use fund balance for that piece,
Mhm.
which is really close to where you're at right now.
But that's also, like you said, all along, we said it's contingent upon the 6.61 being renewed and,
Yeah, this could look
Historic.
totally different after August. We're gonna come back and this could look totally different.
Yeah.
But we've got to keep going with the budget, you
Mhm.
know, with something.
well, I think I think it's very good that we're a few steps ahead of the game in that I think we should be able to put this together a little bit earlier than usual. And I think we should also really start to look at the what if. Start thinking about what's this gonna look like if, God forbid it, the restoration renewal is not approved.
That's next on the list.
Mhm.
So we are looking at a November vote on the road patrol deputies. If that should go down, we'll eliminate the road patrol because we don't have any other choice, but we will still have some ongoing costs, right? Dealing with unemployment and some of the benefit payouts,
Mhm.
which is not factored in here.
Correct.
So that's where you get into that contingency that you're talking about, making sure we have that still available,
I don't
or
know
at least a
if
good chunk of it available.
would that contingency be sufficient to cover those costs?
Or will get eaten up.
And you still have fund balance, right? But and you've got, things we haven't talked about. We'll get to the healthcare discussion. We'll just maybe put that one aside, but we've talked about furlough days, we a little bit, and what those can save. We have talked about delinquent tax fund and not taking the $800,000 $1 million, and knowing that the treasurer couldn't settle on March 1. Could settle later, but I don't think there's a lot of wiggle room. And we talked about the percentage staying the same for the delinquents that they're purchasing, but the amount is going up. So you kind of need to leave more seed money in there now. We talked about PA 123. I don't think we touched that until, you see the money pouring out of there to people coming for their surplus. So I don't think we touched that. So
Right now.
we do have commissary. That's one thing we haven't thought of in this budget. We normally transfer in from the commissary fund to cover purchase of new vehicles for the sheriff to the tune of $100,000 a year. Now, I'm not saying necessarily to incorporate that in here, but you've got some of those contingency funds to think about.
A little bit
Right,
of wiggle
so-
room in there somewhere, right?
Little.
I was gonna say very
A little,
little,
that we
but
haven't talked, but for the most part, those ideas are out here, but as a first blush, department requested. We're we're doing pretty good.
Like I say, we spent a lot of time, many hours and many meetings, getting to this point.
Mhm.
It's an accomplishment compared to previous budgets in the process, so. On the discussion items for funding considerations that are in here, I do believe the emergency management coordinator position is essential. You know, I didn't have that same appreciation before we got all the feedback, but knowing what that position provides to the county and the residents, I just can't, imagine not having it.
The return on investment is greater than what the county perspective shows us on that position. I think I was surprised at what, like you said, what it brings to the community.
and to me, it's an insurance policy, for the county board of commissioners. Love Chairman Hope, but I can't see him being our emergency management coordinator. I can't see any of us really stepping into that role and being even close to effective in that role.
He doesn't have enough vacation time. That poor man takes vacation to come to meetings.
Exactly. So
Um,
I concur with you. I think that's the emergency management coordinator position is something that we should strongly look at putting
The
back in.
Assistant prosecuting attorney position, you know, I kind of understand the argument. You're comparing the defense to the prosecuting. I don't know. I think it's important that we keep the prosecuting attorney's office up to strength. But I'm not sure that it's one that, when you take a look at other cuts, it's something that I would continue to not fund. We can't compare to the state. We can't keep up. The state keeps coming back with their changes, their mandates on what they fund. And if we started doing that, we'd be in the hole so much. And
You have to
it's just
draw-
my thought.
you have to draw the line somewhere, I think.
The heads contract, I am not in it for $175,000. I know we need to have some place to take animals. I don't know, even know how many animals, dogs we handle. If that's something that could be worked out with an adjoining county where they would take the animals. Or if HATS continue to function, if we provide them the building and that's agreeable with the city and we provide them some smaller amount, but nowhere near $175,000.
Look for them to privately fund themselves.
You know, the adoption of pets. I know people want to see that, but whether that should be a county paid function, I just don't see it. I think the drain intern and the prosecuting intern are important. I think the value you get out of interns, yeah, it's a training exercise for those young people, but it does provide good benefit back to the county. Dues and subscriptions, I would say drop the National Association of Counties. Keep Michigan Association of Counties. I do enjoy the Michigan Township Association. The information I get on that, I think is even better sometimes we get from the MAC.
Mac, you know,
Every week gets better, yeah.
But it does keep us abreast of what the challenges are out in the townships.
for our
too.
townships, and I like
And
that.
as a rural county board commissioner and
I-
Commissioner Ember being the
yes.
same, I think that's important.
Yep.
The dues, when you miss out, if you're a Shepherd, I know Shepherd's only $45 or something.
Mhm.
They're not,
The chamber.
yeah, in the chamber. Yeah, I don't know. They're not big dollar amounts and we do, you know, we do keep communication in the community, so maybe we need to do that, but.
I think it's a small investment to show those partners that we
Still want to be a partner.
Still want to be a partner, yes.
We get a lot of benefit, I think, from that.
Cost benefit for the amount of money.
Commissioner Ember, you may want to share some ideas?
Oh, I concur with you on all of them so far.
Well,
So if we, let's say we did incorporate some of these and reduce the contingency, we still have this to reduce is. I know we covered every department. Are there still some departments that we still have hanging that
Yeah,
we might still wrench
Sure.
out a few more dollars.
sheriff, don't we have the sheriff yet and courts?
What do you mean? Can you say that, or what are you asking?
Finalized budgets discussions. And we kind of, we came away with both of them. I know we have a meeting tomorrow with courts regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget, but I think we also still need to circle back with the sheriff. We haven't come to any kind of hard numbers regarding the sheriff's office budget,
In the zero, like in
In the
the as
zero.
is?
the zero-based budget. At least that's my understanding.
Well, in order to create what we have here, I wrote numbers from the sheriff's office to incorporate in here. We haven't had a follow-up meeting from our first budget meeting.
Okay.
But those numbers, those bare minimum numbers are in here along with 1/4 of funding deputies. And those items that go along with it, oil and gas for a quarter, vehicle repair,
Insurance.
maintenance,
Yeah.
those, Jen Wilson did a great analysis of all of that, breaking all of that out for one quarter.
So, okay, so under 301 Sheriff's Department, you've got 2025 requested at 1.957 versus the zero base at 1.371 million.
And 515,000 of that 1.9 is for first quarter deputies and expenses that go along with it.
So if you back that out. it
Back
just
that
gets
out.
closer to zero.
Yep.
But we didn't want, the board has taken action and said, we
That's
will
what we're doing.
maintain those positions
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
calendar year. So we couldn't not include that
No,
in
we have to
this
include it.
budget.
Well, I'm just looking at the rest of his budget. That's why I want, at some point in time, I want to have a conversation or at least analyze his budget from 2024 to 2025, exclusive of the road patrol money that you got in there. I'd like to see line by line comparisons as to where the cuts were made. 'Cause I haven't seen that yet.
Gotcha.
I'd like to see that.
So I guess one of the big questions yet is what are we gonna do with the county administration building? We got 750,000 set aside for bonding, putting that building back together. For a bond of 30 years. Guess we still need to look at the options that have more meetings on it. I'm trying to remember, we haven't had a buildings and grounds kind of meeting with the contractors since. We've had, I can't remember the figures that we were given. If we were to occupy a floor, or maybe a floor and a half, is it gonna take $11 million to rebuild the building? Is that the figure that we were given?
If we, well, because we have to do so much to the whole building
Right.
regardless of. whether-
Regardless of what we
Right,
got.
the white box, we have to bring it up to code,
Mhm.
even if we're not finishing it, if you will. And if we roll the cost of asbestos abatement into that, then we'll approach. I feel like it was 9.5 million for 2 floors.
Yep, that's
and
the
then
numbers in my head.
White box 1 floor.
Correct.
If you want to put the asbestos in with that, yeah.
We'll go to 11 and a half.
Yeah, 11 and a half.
Which the 750,000 over 30 years covers.
Mhm.
So if we can figure out another way. Yeah. Eliminate that $750,000 payment somehow, then that's where we're at. Hopefully, do we have a meeting coming up?
We need
Do
to,
that.
we need to schedule one.
We need to
do
schedule, we have not yet.
have
Okay, so we need to schedule that and get the feedback from the people we've already.
Yep, it would be good to have, I think, Spicer and Spence there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mhm.
Because that might go a long way. If we can come to an understanding of how we want to move ahead, then we can get back to these conversations about this stuff.
Mhm.
Depending on where we are, if we have the monies available, then maybe we can start looking at what else we can put back in.
Mhm. Yeah,
And-
this list was kind of
And,
made to help you,
and obviously, there's nothing in here regarding Amy Cell.
correct?
So,
Correct.
and just in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how can we make all of these things work, and if we get some positive information back from our folks regarding courthouse or the administration building, and maybe we can make some things work.
Yeah, to step out of protocol one more time, I don't know if there's any comments from any of the county staff on where we are at this point with our first draft or the impacts you're having in your departments. So give you a chance to speak if you'd like.
I would just add,
Come on. So come
presuming
on,
that there's no COLA in that,
Correct.
in the current budget.
that is correct.
How soon we can make a decision on the building? You have rents and stuff already for next year. I mean, if we're not gonna move into the building, I mean, it's gonna take time. It's gonna have $20,000
Good point.
a month.
Right, but we can, I mean, we'll do a budget amendment for it, but we'll roll that cost into the bond. The cost of,
The monthly cost of
Yes.
renting, continuing to rent.
yes.
Yeah, maybe you could bring up elected officials, department head meeting. I guess I'd like some feedback what everybody thinks of the current accommodations. I'm sure they suck. Because everybody's
Yeah.
pressed in. Was that affirmative or no, they're not so bad?
They're horrible.
Because one option we have is we continue to rent
Mm.
and pay the rent and push this other money back in the budget, but
That's silly for an establishment that will be here.
we need to find a
Okay.
solution.
Yeah, permanent solution.
We're not temporary.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I do want, for the departments that are here and maybe watching or will watch later. Again, I know this process has been a very trying process. It's very new. Almost unusual in county government to go through the process you went through over a couple months. But I have to commend everyone involved, for not having been through this process. We've come a long way. And, to think last year at this time, we were needing $5 million or more to balance a budget, which again, I almost needed to take more blood pressure medication when I saw that number the first time, being new to this. Then when you look at this and we're basically, we are balancing a budget in a matter of just a few months. I gotta tell you, that's pretty impressive. Coming through. Oh, I'm still taking lots of medicine. Yes, sir. Again, I can't express my appreciation enough to all the department heads and electeds for what you've done to get us to this point. Again, thank you all very much.
Everybody's been very cooperative
Yes.
and provided a lot of good ideas. The only thing I will say for the county board, I know we're taking a lot of heat, talking about mismanagement and wasteful, none of that. What we should have been doing over the years, instead of drawing into our fund balance, is we should have started zero-based budgeting and not move that year by year by year forward, because it just depleted our reserves. We should have been making the cuts that we're gonna be making in 2025 over the years. We'd probably still be coming to the same thing where we still need to have a road patrol millage. And that shouldn't be a surprise. I just read that Eaton County has to go for a road patrol millage because they don't have the funds for it. We know that Gladwin County, a couple years ago, had that same problem. And it got turned down, they got passed the next year. And Montcalm County, I mean, counties across the board are having the same financial pressures that we're having. We could have taken action sooner. We'd have been a much leaner government sooner. But we will be a leaner government. We'll be one that will work within its budget as we move forward. And again, thank you for everyone's input.
And I think you're bringing that up. I know we've had several town hall meetings with constituents around the county. And to your point about malfeasance or department heads, wasting money, we have defended you at every turn. And we made it very, very clear that the folks that we have employed here at Isabella County are very thoughtful, very prudent, very conscientious about the money they have. They're forward thinking. They think out of the box, and as Commissioner Sweeney says, they're nimble. And obviously, that's evidenced by a zero based budget that's balanced. So again, thank you all.
So, can I ask one thing? So you're actually, when you're out in these meetings, you're hearing that department heads
Oh, yeah.
that's the first I've heard that.
You,
I haven't heard
listen, you guys all have either a little room or a little safe somewhere that you have all kinds of money stashed away that you guys all go to.
Somebody's gotta show me where ours is.
Again, when you cleaned out the county building, I asked the guys, hey, you come across some safes, please let me know, and I still haven't heard from anybody
I
yet.
wonder why the Hoovers haven't been back.
They're in Mexico with their money.
Right, so that's what we're hearing, and that's the mentality sometimes that's out there, and it's unfortunate, but again, we're standing by the county administrator, we're standing by the department heads and electeds, and we're pushing back to say that's crazy talk, if you ask me. We have very, very good people working for us that are very cost conscious.
Obviously, no specific, like, this is where,
No.
this is what, it's just the
In
assumption
general,
that it's
yeah.
happening in general.
We're all in cahoots. Yes.
We do have excellent department heads and electeds, but I do think one of the things that made the big difference is that the commissioners were involved in these first budget meetings that we did. I can't tell you I feel like that made a difference, and I feel like this department requested column may have been different if finance hadn't been involved in those meetings, so I'd love for you to consider that going forward. I know this year was special, but
No,
to have you guys involved
Right.
in that and the understanding of it and to have that feedback for that department head or elected from a board representative at the table, I think was
I
powerful.
appreciate that, because Mr. Chairman, that was going to be my recommendation, once we got through this process, that the process that we just went through would be a yearly process. So that, just like you said, we would start from zero every year and build and work our way back up. We've been through the process. Everyone knows how it works. I think we could avoid a lot of how we got here if we adopted this process year in and year out. So again, thank you for that recommendation, but that was going to be my recommendation as well to the chair, that we continue to be involved on a yearly basis.
I think the three commissioners learned a lot too. I know I did. In 9 years of being here, of exactly what each department does and what things that they handle their own department. They know their own department, things that I shouldn't necessarily have to know, but I learned and, oh, okay, now that fully makes sense in a lot of these department meetings that we had. So,
Yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, you get a new county board commissioner on, they're not gonna be anywhere near productive till they start learning. It takes 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
To really get to know the job.
Right, this is the county government 101 when you go through the budget process, believe me.
Yes.
Well, I think it's even more like 301 or 401.
So this doesn't require any action, but are you gonna put it on the agenda just to bring the other commissioners up to date? We may not have the same amount of discussion, but I think information's very good.
Yes, sir.
And we may get more feedback from our
Yes, sir.
companions.
Sounds good.
Very clear direction.
All right, we'll move on then to the invoice list discussion. The first list is May 17th. A lot of drain work going on.
Hmm.
You see the sheriff had a couple mortgage foreclosure. That's lenders recovering property. That's
Correct.
And then our McBride Quality Care monthly day treatment contract, 43,000. That's always a chunk of money. But other than that, I don't see anything.
I didn't see anything else unusual. No.
okay. Is it possible to explain to sheriff? I know we had another commissioner, not in a meeting, ask, what is this? What is the sheriff mortgage foreclosure sale? And I know we talked about it in a separate meeting, but
Come on.
can we, I think
Oh,
that's
yeah. Come on
helpful.
right after you're on TV.
Perception is,
Yeah.
I think the perception is that sheriff like repossessed or.
He took it.
Yes, he confiscated a house and sold it I think is the perception.
Well, it's a mortgage foreclosure that's
Okay.
held by the sheriff's department. A sheriff's deputy holds the sale. So
Okay.
usually it's Jen Swanson
Mhm.
will be the deputy holding it on the courthouse steps. So the sheriff's department does the sale on behalf of the mortgage company or the,
Lending institution.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So they come and they have the sale. Most generally, they bid over $1 over whatever the mortgage is. And then the person who purchases it writes a check out to the county treasurer. We then forward the funds to the mortgager and keep the dollar for 6 months redemption period.
Mhm.
Or whatever the overage is, it seems to usually be $1.
So this is different from your foreclosure
Yes,
sale.
completely different.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. They have a 6 month redemption period through a mortgage sale.
Okay.
So we hold anything, or they can come back to redeem it and they redeem through the Register of Deeds. Yeah. So the one sale that happened this time was actually canceled because it should have never gone up for sale in the first place. So you'll see the documentation showed that the money actually went back to the purchaser because the sale never should have happened. So the total amount was not going to the mortgage person. It was going back to the person who purchased
Because they're not getting it.
because they're not getting it. The sale, yeah.
Which one was it?
Petoskey.
Okay.
They're getting their money back. They were the one who purchased it, but they're gonna just get their money back. Because the people were actually in bankruptcy, so they never should have foreclosed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was actually a cancellation.
Mhm.
I think we just didn't want people thinking that sheriff's personal mortgage went up for sale and it's foreclosed and that's,
Yeah,
And-
it's
And
the,
we paid for it.
right,
and the county pays for it.
correct.
These are just pass-through dollars.
They
They
are,
were
yes.
never ours.
They're in a
they'll never be
701 trust and
ours.
agency line item.
Pastor, that's a key word, pastor.
So we hold on to it. We pay it out as soon as we can and get it to, Detroit Legal News is a, like a fiduciary of some sort that handles all the funds. And so we send it down to them.
Clearinghouse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Fascinating.
Thank you for that. You're welcome. Things are a lot better than those
We-
forwards.
I
and
hope,
what-
maybe.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the only other stuff I noticed in here, there's always a lot of restitution that goes through the courts and people having to pay monies that were criminally, I don't know if you call it criminally taken, but they were monies that didn't belong to
Oh.
them, having to return it to the companies that lost it. But a lot of those and a lot of drain work, a lot of always
Out of drain.
Commission on Aging. We have a lot of people that perform services and
Volunteers.
travel and stipends, so. Any other questions on that list?
I do not.
All right, we'll move on then to the May 24th. Again, very routine. We do have a Spicer Group getting paid for some design services on the county administration rebuild. Legal fees to our county council, equalization payments, some drain work. We have our monthly medical examiner contract payment. And we got some payments to Zenenberg Asphalt for PM Marquette Rail Trails seal coating and repair. Consumers Energy.
Can I ask a question? Apologize for interrupting, sir. Director Hanson?
Yeah.
How familiar are you with Zenenberg Asphalt? Have they done work for you before, or
Yeah, second job.
when was the last one? How long ago was it?
Prior to this, it was last fall, I believe we finished the work in November.
Are you happy with their work?
We have been happy with the final product. We did actually recommend them to Midland County as a vendor, so. There were some bumps in the road, but the owner of the company always made them right before we received any final billing, so we've always, that's why I say we've always been happy with final product.
But they've answered.
Very responsive,
That's what I'm
very open to, conversations, follow up, coming back and thanking the peers.
Cool. Okay.
And they are happy to come out and do the estimates and walk through the job process on the front end too.
Well, very good. Okay, just sorry for the tangent. I've always been concerned with asphalt companies, so thank you.
They did this parking lot here in 22, FYI, so
Okay. Okay.
that gives you something to
Yep.
go on.
All right.
Commissioner Emmer, do you have any questions about any of the larger payments or any of the smaller checks?
Nope, but I
Goes for-
But as I've been trying to do is make a point of pointing out the difference between general fund expenses and pass-through dollars. In these two particular invoice lists, you have over $1,050,000 as pass-through money. Oh, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. $1 million worth of total payments,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And you have only $172,000 of that as general fund expenditures. So $172,000 versus a total payout of over $1 million. So most of that is pass-through dollars that we just are authorizing payment for,
Other funds.
Other
that are
funds.
Non-general funds.
not general fund money. Yep. That's all I'm gonna have to make on that, sir.
All right, and no other comments or questions on either one of those lists, we'll move those forward to the work session. Announcements. Hearing none, we'll do another call to the public. Then we will adjourn at noon.
Pretty good for us.
Hit the mark.